Hi everyone. I am going to introduce to you a real world piece of writing. In fact, it's super recent. It's a recommendation letter that I just wrote last year and had to resend this year for a student of mine who took English 120 in the classroom. He's a pre-med student. He's trying to get into medical school, and his name is Jake. And I won't reveal his last name, but he needed this recommendation letter, and I just resubmitted it last week on his behalf because he was waitlisted last year and he's reapplying to schools this year. And so when we talk about rhetoric, we are thinking about the situation. And I'm going to have my notes up, by the way, this pad here, and I'll write down some things that I'm talking about so you can follow along a little bit better as I speak. And I'll be writing comments in the actual letter itself. This is about 2 pages, this letter, and I'm going to read a paragraph at a time and just highlight a couple moves I'm making throughout the letter so you can see my noted rhetorical moves. And it's important that you pay attention to this because the way you annotate a piece of writing and the way you think about it in terms of rhetorical moves is actually different from maybe how you might annotate a text in general using various strategies. So this one's a little bit more focused in terms of how you annotate. And so one thing I go into thinking about when I write a recommendation letter for a student is I think about my audience, right? Who is my audience? And I know that it's a committee of people, of professionals, academic, right? Medical expertise. And so I'm also going to assume that because they are receiving a lot of these applications, then I have to make an assumption that I, as an English teacher, probably don't need to, write about the medical field because I'm an English teacher. So, thinking about, I'm an English teacher. Why would they expect me to talk about his medical background? I don't know anything about that. They receive a lot of applications, so they probably want me to humanize him. And what does that mean? Talk about his values, talk about ways in which he has been compassionate or has other traits. And any ways in which I've personally connected with him. And personal, I'll just put personal and professional connection with him. So that way he stands out. Okay? So that way he is exemplary. And so I'm asking myself the question, in what ways can I make sure that he's, stand out awesome to them when they were, receiving a lot of competitive applications? And so what is my argument? My argument and my purpose, and this goes into the pieces handout that I showed you guys. My purpose and my argument. Let's try this. My purpose is to inform my readers that Jake is a deserving candidate. to humanize him as a highly competent individual pursuing the med field. Okay. And my argument is I argue that Jake should be, and I like to use words like should or should not, right? And when I create I'm like thinking about what's my topic and what's my position on that topic. So I'm going to say, I argue that Jake should be accepted into the medical schools of his choice because he is exemplary. And okay, so that's kind of how I think about it. And of course, I want my tone to be super formal, but like I kind of know him. Okay. So now that I've kind of outlined my rhetorical context, right? It's a recommendation letter. This is my rhetorical situation. When we think about rhetorical situation, we always think about the writer, the text, and the audience. So my rhetorical situation is the writer is me. The text is a recommendation letter. And the audience is the medical field, school acceptance committee, whatever it says over here, the medical school application services. That's what I should probably put. And I'll just put, I'll just leave it as is, but you know what I mean. It's the medical school application services. Okay. So, and Jake's going to be reading my letter too. He's actually like a side audience because I do send him, I like to send students a recommendation letter copy for them to keep. So here is my letter, and I'm going to read a few paragraphs. And as I read it, I'll read a paragraph at a time, and then I will annotate it for you so you can see my rhetorical moves. To whom it may concern, it is with great pleasure that I recommend future physician Jake for admittance to your medical school. Jake was an A student in my English 120 college composition and reading course during spring 2016, and from what I've seen with his strong work ethic, intelligence, innovative thinking, professional demeanor, and passion, he's very much deserving of a place in your program. And so what I've done here, if I just make a few notes, is this. I'm going to use active verbs, okay? So I'm establishes formal and friendly tone. I'm also sharing my purpose and focus, which is Jake, right? And then here, I'm giving a fact with some background context. So this is logical appeal, actually. Appeals to logic. Shares context, which is, a fact that he was, like, no one's going to argue that. He was a student in my English 120 class, and he did earn an A. And that's important that he's that I show right away he's a high achieving student, very on top of things. So that's context for how I know Jake. And that's also a fact that I'm sharing at the same time. And then this is where I share my thesis, right? So this is kind of like why we write essays. We actually use this in real world writing. I'm going to write down that this is my main argument. I'm not going to put a verb here because, this has the map of what I'm going to cover with all my subtopics. I'm going to actually highlight all these different traits and to help argue why he deserves a spot in the program. And so I'm going to read the next paragraph. It's a little bit long, but I'm just going to highlight some main moves I'm making here. A large part of what makes Jake a commendable individual is that he consistently strives for success in his own work and in his relationships with others. In my class, he engaged in collaborative group work and individual close readings of expository texts like Deborah Rhodes' Why Looks Are the Last Bastion of Discrimination, which is about appearance discrimination among men and women, and Michael Moore's Idiot Nation, which sheds light on issues in the educational and political system. Jake displayed again and again that he is a solid critical thinker and writer, developing his own original and argumentative insights along the way. For the final research paper, students were asked to focus on a contemporary issue related to inhumane treatment. Jake wrote an outstanding, well-researched essay on elderly abuse, setting it up thoughtfully in a complex problem solution framework. He delivered properly cited facts and testimonial support, clearly addressed sub-issues like physical, financial abuse, and medical treatment on elders, and drew logical, meaningful conclusions. On the last day of class, he presented his findings in a professional, visually appealing PowerPoint to the class. His oral delivery was powerful, and he was effective in teaching the other students about a topic they had never considered to care about before. This is what Jake does. He creates respect among his peers and teachers because he is sharp, focused, motivated, confident, and influential with his passion and compassion. And so I just want to say before I begin annotating this is that the entire paper, I am trying to build Jake's credibility. All of this is me building up Jake's ethos, right? So I'm just going to make a quick note. I am trying to develop Jake's ethos, his ethical likability, his experience, etc., right? Throughout the entire paper, I'm doing this. So this is my first claim, right? This is my topic sentence is actually my claim. And I know it's a claim because I support it with actual evidence. When you're thinking about evidence and claims, think about how they relate to each other. Evidence always supports claims. So I usually like to put my claims in the topic sentence. It's argumentative. So this is where I share a personal experience in a concrete text. And let's see. So I'm going to insert a comment here. I am exemplifies specific texts and class situation in which Jake did well. Notice all my verbs, right? Establishes formal and friendly tone, appeals to logic, exemplifies specific texts, and all of this is meant to build his credibility. For the final research paper, students were asked to focus on a contemporary issue. So this is just me explaining more context. And then I share a result of something he did, right? So even though I'm talking about him citing facts and testimonial support, this is actually me sharing concretely what he was doing in the class. I'm showing this as evidence to build his credibility, right? And I'm also trying to move my readers at the same time. I'm trying to move my readers that he cares about these issues. So let's see how we might talk about that. Reveals results, what Jake accomplished. I'm also appealing to emotions.